Hey traders, welcome back to the weekly Forex Forecast. Wall Street traders are placing all or nothing bets on a soft landing, although history tells us that this is almost close to impossible to achieve once inflation gets above 7.5%. And in last week's video, I highlighted a potential bull trap area. And why did I highlight that area? Because the market was pricing only a 5% chance of the S&P 500 breaking through that area. And yet, on the CPI print that we got out last week, we did blast through this area. And in fact, the move in the S&P 500 this month has been so strong, so bullish, it has moved too far too fast. And usually this is consistent with more of a major top or reversal. And in fact, the last time we saw small caps performing this well to the upside was right before the major bear market of 2022. So for that reason, I do favor risk off once again going into the Forex markets this week. Okay, so let's have a look at the scores for the coming week. And you can see the only currency here with any real edge is the Japanese yen. The rest of the Forex markets are kind of neutral, kind of choppy, and kind of rudderless really. And this does set up potential range trades. I do not want to, once again, be shorting Japanese yen. Had you have shorted the Japanese yen over the prior weeks when the data was suggesting in the scorecards that it was a good short, you would have done nicely. My concern is and has been and still remains that if we get risk off, we are potentially going to see the Japanese yen reverse higher. So you can trade Japanese yen to the short side if you so wish, but I'm personally staying away from it because of the risks around risk off in the markets. So going into next week, my favorite setup is actually Canadian dollar shorts because we do have significant underperformance in the crude oil market. Crude oil is a market that I'm looking to the downside next week, and we're going to be looking at in today's video. And the Canadian dollar as a derivative of that, as a commodity currency, a currency which is affected through the balance of payments by the demand for oil. It does put Canadian dollar shorts at the top of my list going into next week. I will also look at pound shorts going into next week, and also we'll be looking at New Zealand shorts. And I'm primarily going to be pairing those three shorts with the euro, the US dollar, and the Swiss franc. Okay, so let's have a look at the markets themselves, starting with crude oil. Crude oil was a market highlighted in last week's video, and we traded right into the lower bound, so a really good opportunity to the downside in crude oil last week. And I do still favor, once again, further declines in crude oil. And it's this bias on crude oil, which is also leading me to Canadian dollar shorts, not just because they're the second best short in the scorecard, but also we have crude oil selling off as well, which puts downward pressure on the Canadian dollar. So I do like crude oil shorts and Canadian dollar shorts going into next week. Any pullback in this market is viewed as an opportunity to look for bearish breakouts intra-week. And usually I like to drop down to the 1 hour chart, the 15-minute chart to look for these breakouts into the 71.50. Or if we hold and we fail to break and we fail to break and we hold and we pull all the way back and we test these lows over here in the 81 to 82 zone, this is the second place I'd be looking for a near-term short in crude oil next week. Moving on to the Forex pairs, my favorite market next week is EurCad. EurCad, US dollar CAD, Euro pound, pound dollar. These four highlighted in gold are my favorite opportunities next week. So any pullback in EurCad, and you can see this nicely trending to the upside, any pullback in this market is viewed as an opportunity next week to look for bullish breakouts into the 1.5100 area. And again, if we hold the trend and we hold the trend and we pull all the way back, perhaps test this low here in the 1.48250 area, this would be the second place next week I'd be looking for, especially if we come down and bounce and test this support area. This would be the second place I'd look for a near-term buy opportunity in EurCad next week. EurCad was a market highlighted in last week's video to the upside, and we had a really strong move to the upside. So again, looking for performance to the upside out of this Forex market next week. Next is US dollar CAD. Now this is a market that was highlighted in last week's video, and we had a really nice bounce from the lower bound. And last week I was saying I could either buy this or do nothing. You know, selling this market is not an option. And once again this week, I'm only looking to be a buyer of US dollar CAD. If we can come down like last week and bounce at the lower bound, that would be preferable. So any continued pullback in this market is viewed as an opportunity to look for bullish breakouts next week into the 1.3840 area. And if we continue down, especially if we trade into these lows down here and we pull all the way back into the 1.3600 area, It's the second place next week. I'd be looking for a near-term bounce. There's a key area of support down here as well that can confirm this. If we trade into this area, this is the second place. I'd be looking for a near-term bounce and buying opportunity in US dollar CAD next week. Next is CAD franc. Now the franc has kind of been out of play recently and it is still neutral in the scorecards, but in risk-off environments, we will see the franc outperform slightly, especially against the commodity currencies. So I can either sell this market or do nothing next week. Buying this market is not an option. Any pullback in this market, and I do like the way this is nicely starting to trend to the downside, any pullback is viewed as an opportunity to look for bearish breakouts down towards 0.63900. And if we hold this trend and we hold this trend and we pull all the way back into the 0.6520, this is the second place next week. I'd be looking for a near-term short opportunity in CAD franc. Moving on to the pound pairs, and Euro pound is the top market that I like out of the pound pairs. And I haven't highlighted the franc pairs here in gold, but to be honest with you, you could put these in gold as well. You could probably classify this as being the top 6, because it may be the case that, you know, maybe the US dollar slightly underperforms next week and the franc pairs actually do a bit better. So you could just take these top 6 if you wanted to. I do like all 6 of these the most going into next week. But any pullback in this market next week is viewed as an opportunity to look for intra-week breakouts to the upside up to the 0.88100. And if we just hold this range and we hold this and we continue to pull back into 0.700 and perhaps even pop through and test this low, this will be the second place next week. I'd be looking for a near-term buy opportunity in Euro pound. Next is pound dollar. Now, one of the reasons why I like EurOcad and US dollar CAD, Euro pound and pound dollar is because the euro and the dollar tend to move in opposite directions, and therefore what we can see is we can actually almost set up both ways here, and we can wait to see what outperforms the best next week. If it's the euro, we can step into the EurOcad, Euro pound, you know, maybe even Euro New Zealand trades. And if we start to see the US dollar outperforming the euro next week, we can even pivot to US dollar CAD, pound dollar, or even New Zealand dollar. So I like the setup here with being long both the euro and the US dollar, in the sense that both of those long ideas are on my watch list. But it may be the case that we go into next week, and when you're watching the markets develop, see what euro dollar is doing. If euro dollar is rallying to the upside and the euro is outperforming, you know, pivot to the euro longs. If you see euro dollar starting to underperform next week, then consider pivoting to the US dollar long plays. So we have a really nice setup here going into next week where we can be reactive depending on whether the euro or the dollar is playing out as the best long. So any continued push higher in this market next week is viewed as an opportunity to look for bearish reversals down to the 1.2300. And if we continue to push higher and we continue to trend higher into the 1.260, it's the second place next week. I'd be looking for a near-term short opportunity in pound dollar. Next is pound franc. Now this market has been very, very choppy over here, but what I do like about this is you can see the upper bound, and I am only looking to be short or do nothing in this market next week. The upper bound sits right at a couple of prior highs. So any pullback in this market is viewed as an opportunity to look for bearish breakouts intra-week down to, in this case, the 1.0930. But I do really like to take trades from the upper and lower bounds myself, even though I do trade intra-week as well. So if we can continue to push higher and we test into this key area, or even we push through here and test both of them, this would be a great place next week to look for a near-term short opportunity in pound franc. The next market we're going to look at is euro dollar. Now both these markets are fairly strong in the scorecards, but the euro is the strongest. So going into next week, if you are trading this market, and I think there are better markets to trade, I would be focused on long trades in euro dollar. So any pullback in this market next week would be viewed as an opportunity to look for a bullish breakout and a continuation of the trend into the 1.0120. Or if we start to pull back and we retest the 1.080s, we break through and then we pull back and we start to retest the 1.080 level, this will be the second place next week. I'd be looking for a near-term buy opportunity in euro dollar. Now the fact that I go into next week with a bullish bias on euro dollar does mean that I favor EurOcad and Euro pound on balance over and above US dollar CAD and pound dollar next week. And if we do start to see euro dollar outperforming to the upside, not only will EurOcad and Euro pound be good options to be looking at here, because, you know, if the euro is outperforming the dollar, why would you go long US dollar CAD when you can go long EurOcad and get paid more, right? So I do have a long bias on euro dollar next week, and if we do start to see that outperformance, not only will I be looking at EurCad and euro pound to the upside, but look also for CAD franc and pound franc to outperform as well in the directions highlighted. Next is Euro New Zealand. Now I don't like these markets as much as these 6 here because the New Zealand dollar is not quite as weak in the scorecards as the other currencies highlighted. However, I will still be looking at potential opportunities in Euro New Zealand and New Zealand dollar. So any pullback next week is going to be viewed as an opportunity to start to look for intra-week breakouts in Euro New Zealand. And we've already got momentum, consolidation, and now we're looking for further momentum to the upside. So any breakout into the 1.8400 I'm going to be looking for next week. And again, if we hold this and we hold this and we test this area and perhaps even test this low, this is the second place next week. I'll be looking for a near-term buy opportunity in Euro New Zealand. And the final Forex pair here is New Zealand dollar. If we start to push higher, I'm going to be looking for a potential reversal at the highs, and I'm going to be looking for a bearish breakout in this market. I'm going to be looking down to the key area of support down here at the 0.590. And if we start to push higher and perhaps we test this high over here and this high, as you can see, they're both kind of level here. If we push through these highs over here into the 0.6080, this is the second place I'll be looking for a near-term short opportunity next week in New Zealand dollar. So either one of two things. I'm either looking for the breakout intra-week where we start to push higher and then we break out, pull back, and we sell off into the 0.5900, or I'm looking for a push into the 0.6080, and that'd be the second place I'd look for a near-term short in this market next week. So going into next week, all of these markets would benefit from risk off. If we start to see stocks selling off or pulling back, all of these Forex pairs would benefit from that, apart from euro dollar to the upside. That is a risk on trade. So if you only want to trade risk off, then obviously euro dollar won't be a market that you'd be trading next week. However, even if you're not trading euro dollar, keep an eye on this market next week, because if it starts to rally to the upside as highlighted in today's video, and that is what my bias is, then remember EurCad, Euro Pound, Pound Franc and CAD Franc will be the better markets next week. And vice versa, if we start to see euro dollar selling off, then we may want to look at US dollar CAD or pound dollar and even New Zealand dollar to the downside next week. Okay, so wrapping up the video with gold and silver, and I do on balance favor long positions in both gold and silver, and that may seem strange because usually if we have, US dollar to the long side versus the CAD or the pound, then I would also have that bias in gold. For example, if I'm looking to be long the dollar versus the CAD, I would be looking to be short gold, short silver, because they would be long dollar as well in that play. But going into this week, I think this just really underscores the absolute lack of direction and really the lack of edge in the Forex markets at the moment. We haven't seen this for pretty much all year. We've had really, really strong currencies and really, really weak currencies that we could really find edge in. And at the moment, the Forex markets are kind of rudderless. So I do, on balance, favor long positions in gold and silver, although they're not my favorite markets. And, US dollar CAD to the upside is really based on a weaker CAD than it is a stronger dollar. So any pullback in gold next week is viewed as an opportunity to look for breakouts intra-week into the previous high, roughly at the 2010 area. And if we continue to pull back and we test the 1950 area, this is the second place next week, I'll be looking for a short-term buy opportunity in gold. And last but not least, we have silver. You can see we do have strong momentum to the upside. And again, even though I'm looking at the dollar to the upside versus some weaker currencies, I do think we could see gold and silver higher. So any pullback next week is viewed as an opportunity to look for intra-week breakouts in silver into the 24.40. And if we pull back and we retest, and you can see we've broken out here, been trending down, here's a high, and we come back and we blast through the prior high. If we pull back and we retest the 23 area and we retest the prior high over here, so broken resistance tone support, this would be a great place next week to look for a near-term long opportunity in silver. So that is it for me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, why not consider joining us in the room each day where I go through these markets and the setups that I'm personally looking at with members on a daily basis for over 75 markets in different asset classes, including stocks, bonds, Forex, and commodities.